Getting it real with RealChunWai on the hottest topics, frank, engaging and candid. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe. The calls for GE15 has become louder, while for the first time the opposition has said it does not want one. When is GE15? Joining us tonight is Grewal and Golingai. Good evening, Malaysia and followers from around the world. The big question tonight is, when is GE15? And with us tonight is Grewal, who is a lawyer and columnist, and political analyst and journalist, Golingai, who will join me for this guessing game tonight. We will look into the crystal ball and see whether we see the signs, whether they are there. Welcome, guys.
Hello, hi.
Hi, Ivan.
The MOU between the government and opposition parties says that the dissolution of parliament can be held after July 31st. It does not expire, but the clause does pave the way for GE to be called. Can perhaps Ivan share with us in this particular agreement, on this particular part, what does it really mean?
First of all, I say this with a caveat because I've not seen the MOU or the, but of course the parts of the summary of the agreement was shared. I think what was the idea of the MOU, and I think there's also an understanding between Barisan Nasional and Perikatan Nasional that there will be some degree of consultation that will take place in the event Parliament is to be dissolved. But I think ultimately the power is with the Prime Minister to advise the King, and it's up to the King to then act on the advice of the Prime Minister. So that's the legal formalities that have to be complied with. On the practical political side, I think insofar as the MOU is concerned and the internal agreement between Perikatan and Barisan, my understanding at least is that they cannot do it on their own without consulting one another. At least insofar as what these documents and all say.
Okay, let me read for you. I've got a copy of this here. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
MOU. Okay. Tempoh masa memorandum persefahaman ini hendaklah berkuat kuasa dari tarikh perjanjian ini ditandatangani dan hendaklah terpakai sehingga pembubaran Parlimen Malaysia yang ke-14. Okay. Now that is followed by persefahaman pihak-pihak. Clause 3.1. Kerajaan bersetuju tidak akan mengusulkan pembubaran parlimen sebelum 31 hari bulan Julai 2022. So basically the MOU is effective until the whole term, but it allows for it to be called by before 31st July 2022.
Well,
now,
No, just a short point. I think that insofar as the MOU, I just want to say it's not legally binding because it's not an act of Parliament. Yes. It does not constrain the Prime Minister's power in that sense.
Yeah. It is all. Overall, it's an MOU.
It's an understanding.
It is not even an agreement. It's an MOU. Okay.
Yes.
Now that comes to the point, Philip. Okay. Do you think that the UMNO, for that matter, do they have any reasons at all? After this string of victories, do they have any reasons to delay or to push for GE?
Okay, before I answer that question, Chunwai, first of all, I don't think UMNO signed the MOU. UMNO, the party itself and the leadership, they do not consider they sign it. The MOU is actually signed by the Datuk Seri Ismail Sabri Yaakob government with Pakatan Harapan. That's all. That's two. Yeah. So technically for UMNO, they didn't sign the MOU. So for them, election can come anytime. Okay, your question was what will happen? Okay, I think for UMNO is they do not really care about this MOU since they didn't sign it. Plus, if you look at it based on even the events, just say Melaka and then later Johor and then especially the UMNO AGM, it's very clear the top leadership wants an election ASAP. And then when you look at it, the Prime Minister, what he said is the top 5 leaders will decide. on when is when will be bubar. And then when you look at it, he's been outnumbered actually. Out of the 5, we take okay. Out of the 5, there is the Zahid, the president. He wants bubar. Then you have Muhammad Hassan, who is the deputy president. He wants bubar. Then you go to the 3 vice president. Khalid Nordin, he wants bubar. So the next one will be Mahathir Khalid, which arguably, based on his statement, he is with the cabinet. It looks like he wants the government to end until once the government exists until it's what?
Yeah.
So now the big question is, the big question is whether the prime minister agrees to it. But technically, they already lost by 3 out of 2. So it sounds like it's a formality. The top 3 out of the top 5 wants bubar. Thanks.
Yeah, and in true UMNO style of politicking, where there's a lot of respect for the hierarchy and to take care of feelings, and they have done it nicely. The first day, as far as the wanita and the pemuda was concerned, there was very strong call for a general election. Apa nak tunggu lagi, you know, that kind of thing. And then when they had that assembly proper, you find that the calls were all for an election. And then in the wrap up in the penggulungan, they show the kind of respect to the prime minister to say, look, that we will leave it to the prime minister to consult with all the top 5. And again, as you say, that the top 5 is dominated by 4 other people who want it. So it's nicely wrap up. What do you think, Ivan? Did I get it right?
Absolutely, Dato' Sri, you hit the nail on the head. In true UMNO style, you'll always see red meat at the youth convention, and it's and I think Ashraf, Dato' Ashraf did not disappoint insofar as that was concerned. But I think the most shocking one was the Putri speech, and you know, the whole thing of your balls are bigger than mine kind of thing. So in that sense, but I think they also realized that they don't want to overreach. Whatever it is, UMNO knows that the president, the prime minister is their vice president. They must give him the due respect. And I think that if they decide to go and tear him up and rip him to shreds on stage, it will not look good for the party at all.
Correct.
And I think more importantly, just now I think Philip said it very well. It's a 3-3-2 decision, and I think that the prime minister eventually will take the cue from the party, because I don't think he wants to alienate the party as well. And insofar as the mood of the delegates are concerned, what I read and those delegates who are friends of mine tell me that, look, they want an election fast because they don't want to make the mistake they made the last time, which was to wait for everything to be so perfect. In the end, they lost.
Yeah, correct. And the prime minister made a key word in his round up too. He emphasized that he is a party man, to show that he will follow the decision of the rest. So if you a day after that, we find that the health minister, KJ, he said that he has started to meet the election commission. That's what is important. He said he has met the election commission and they are looking towards the protocol and the SOPs for the general election. And he gave a very interesting hint. He said that they could work towards 6 months' time. So I felt that was a very interesting hint, and he needs at least 6 months to work towards that. So if we look at 6 months towards that, this is me looking at the crystal ball of mine, okay, and trying to give some sense of speculation and reading. We look at, let's just say, the Hajj. Hajj ends from the fasting month. The fasting month starts in April. So and in May, they have the Hari Raya, there'll be a month of celebration, a lot of meeting going on. And then you have the Hajj, which is from July 7 to 12. And Hari Raya Haji is July 10, which is necessary because this is very crucial, because many of the people who has gone for the Hajj will be back by then, July 10. And then the MOU expires, or rather ends, not so much expire, but you can call for an election on July 31st. So if you work on that, ends on July 31st, the Hajj season is on July 10. So what are we looking at around that period? Philip?
Okay, for me, Chunwai, I won't go into the date yet. The thing is, it's not a given that the Prime Minister will seek consent to dissolve Parliament yet. from my understanding of the Prime Minister is, although it is 3 out of 2, he still has not decided I mean, maybe the answer is he hasn't decided when to bubar. So the big question is, yes, he will bubar, but when? Maybe he bubar only at the end of his term. So that's the big question. So for me, the analogy given to me with regard to Ismail Sabri is he's like a bamboo. Okay, he's like this, and then UMNO delegates are pushing him, but he's a bamboo. He'll just wait, and then he's very patient, he's very nice, etc., etc. He believes that the bamboo can come back like this. So at the moment, it's still a bamboo game for him. So there is no guarantee that he will bubar the next 1 month, 2 months, 3 months. I mean, he says yes, but the question is when. So I won't go into the date when election will be called.
Ivan, do you agree with Philip's assessment?
Well, I tend to take a slightly different view to Philip. Primarily because, yes, I think there is what I agree with Philip is that no one can tell you when it's going to bubar. Only Ismail Sabri knows. But I think let's just take it this way. Let's just look at what Ismail Sabri is looking, and let's try to see whether we can decipher. So on one hand, he knows he has the party forcing him to do it, and he's not the president of the party. That's the first factor. Second factor is that he has the health minister telling him, wait 6 months, I need to get the SOPs in order. The third thing he has to consider is that he's got this MOU with the opposition, which now DAP says no problem, we don't mind extending it as well. But I think the fourth factor, which I think overrides all other three, is that he will want to call it at an opportune time. And now you see Mahathir is trying very hard to build this big tent approach. Perikatan plus Warisan plus PBM plus Muda maybe, and Pejuang. So all these permutations are coming in. I think he will eventually have to look at all of these factors. And I think the political bureau of UMNO, which is, the ones that ultimately make these decisions, of course, and the 5 wise men, as they call themselves, they will look at these factors. And my guess, I mean, if he wants his party to do well, as opposed to just wanting to be PM until the end of his term, he will have to do it by July, August this year. Because if
I agree with you, Ivan.
If he waits any longer, yes, he will be prime minister for sure until his term ends. But I don't foresee Barisan Nasional doing well.
Okay,
I agree with you.
Ivan, can I ask you something first? So
sure.
why must he care whether the party do well or not?
I can answer that, Philip.
Yeah, if he wants to be PM until his term
it's perfectly fine for him to think that way, I think. But again, like I said, he'll be a pariah to his party, and he says he's a party man. You see.
Yeah. Philip and Ivan, I agree with that. What you say, Ivan, because that there's no point in continuing to be a prime minister for 1 year, and then your party may get defeated subsequently. They will speak verbally.
No, the MPs will just start voting against him in parliament. Like what happened? They already sent a message to Hamza on the SOSMA. It will happen because the complete playbook has been rewritten. So he knows that as well. And even his strongest supporter, which is Nazri, one of his strongest supporters is Nazri, also said that this government doesn't have a moral legitimacy to continue after the SOSMA vote. So you cannot, I don't think they can continue. So that's my view, Philip, that I think if he decides to stay as PM, all and well, he'll be very happy. He's got all the trappings of power, but he'll be an emperor with no kingdom.
Okay. Ivan, having said that, usually if we assuming that the big push is in July, ends in July 31st, the big push, now. Would it happen in August, September, around that time?
It'll be an opportune time because you do it before the floods come at the end of the year. And then you have the school examinations. So, and then you have a feel-good factor building up to Malaysia Day and Merdeka. And then the economy would have been open for 4-5 months. Things would be much better. Things, especially in Johor, etc. the influx from Singapore, northern part, the influx from Thailand with the open borders.
Yeah.
So I think though that is an opportune time, because even why I say that, if I can give you a bit of context, is that that's what we told those of us who told Dato Sri Najib the last time was not to wait until May 2018, was what to do it in September, October, August, September 2017. And of course he didn't do it.
Yeah. And of course there's another factor. Right now the price of palm oil has gone up.
Yes.
The price of crude oil has also gone up. And while the revenue from the oil has been very high, a lot of what has been earned, the extra revenue, has also been moved towards the subsidy. That's why we will be able to have a very stabilized petrol price, except for RON 27, right? No, RON 97.
97.
Okay? 97, RON 97. But the rest of it, diesel and everything is stabilized. But you cannot go on for this for too long, because that the price of food will eventually go up. Inflation will go up if the war in Ukraine prolong and global supplies is disrupted. So it cannot hold on too long, because if people's pockets are being hit, and right now most Malaysians cannot really feel it. Some may not really even understand how the global supplies, shortages of oil, shortages of many things would hit them. So they can't see, but eventually it will be felt. So we have a few months to play around with. If it's too long, Malaysians would feel it. Okay. Now, let's talk about why is it that while the so-called cluster menteri, UMNO ministers who are serving that term, they will want to enjoy their ministerial posts and their perks and powers. They are very reluctant, to have a GE again. Now, the opposition also do not want it. This is unprecedented, because it is always the opposition who push for it. So how much of a resistance can the opposition push against it? Because the more they push it and the more election is delayed, they have more time to recoup and to reorganize. So how can the opposition now reorganize themselves? Ivan?
Well, I think the first thing the opposition needs to do is to come together and really sit down and have a heart-to-heart discussion about what's going on, what's their policy, what's their minimum program. In fact, I just wrote my column today about this point, about political unity, about Perikatan trying to come together with Pakatan. And my hypothesis is that it may not necessarily work, because it just smacks of pure opportunism. Like, we just want to defeat Barisan, then we win, and then after a few months, we break up again because everybody wants to be PM. Yeah. So I think what the opposition really needs to do is to really sit down and find and understand their real problems. Why aren't they getting votes? Why are people so disappointed and jaded with them? Because if you listen to some of them, for example, you look at Tony Phua, after losing in the DAP elections, he decides to put a whole long letter in the Edge scolding the delegates for not voting for him. So they just don't seem to understand it. You know what I mean? That I think is a big problem, is that they don't understand why they're not getting votes. They just attribute it to, as usual, it's social media, it's Najib, it's this and that. But I think there's a deeper systemic problem insofar as the opposition is concerned.
Philip, when we talk about opposition coming together, those who are pro-opposition would really want them to get together, judging for the comments that they have made on social media. But do you think it can possibly actually work? Because can anyone accept PKR working together with Bersatu, which would comprise a lot of ex-PKR people who are now in Bersatu? We're talking about this, what do you call it, Anwar Ibrahim, Nurul, shaking hand and hugging Asmin Ali again. Can you imagine DAP and PAS, Lim Guan Eng or Anthony Lok hugging Hadi Awang, or for that matter, PAS and Amanah working together? Can all this actually work? Maybe for the election, but can they? As Ivan said, it's purely a game to win, and it will eventually break up. But before coming to that, can they actually form any alliance for the general election at all?
Okay, Chunwai, I answered that question differently. Okay. Actually, before GE14 or 2018, the game was the opposition leaders made the decision, and therefore the rakyat followed them. So it didn't matter, actually. Lim Kit Siang hug, what's his name? Mahathir, Anwar hug Mahathir, etc., etc. The opposition voters, they swallowed all of those because at that time they had credibility. When just say Guan Eng said this, it is that. And then when Anwar says this, the voters, opposition voters will listen to them. But if you notice, post Pakatan Harapan government, I think the voters suddenly realized that these people that we worship are actually roughly the same as those people that we despise. So you see, the thing is not about this leader anymore. They can shake hands, they can kiss whoever they want, but the voters are no longer convinced. So if you ask me what the Rakyat wants, that's why the voter turnout is low. Forget about COVID, but why is it low? It's because this is how it's explained to me. Guan Eng, when he was the Secretary General, Mat Sabu, who's the President of Amanah, and Anwar as the President of PKR, and then we have Pejuang and etc. They have lost credibility actually. The voters are fed up with them. So what the voters want is, in order for them to be excited and go out to vote, they want new leaders actually. So it doesn't matter. So the change has slightly happened in DAP with Anthony Locke as the Secretary General, but still big question mark among the opposition, who's in real control of the party. Some are looking at when Lim Kit Siang was the chairman, and then Kirk Kim Hock was the Secretary General. So still big question mark whether the Lim family are in control of DAP. Then now, sorry to say, but I think Anwar has lost so much credibility. The opposition voters out there, the Bangsa crowd, they're not excited with him. It's the same with Mahathir also. Just say they combine even back then. Back now, they combine again. But people will not be convinced. So the answer to that question is the opposition need new leaders. That's all.
Having said that, can you imagine that this Anwar Ibrahim or Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin would still be the poster boy of their respective party in the next upcoming general election?
Yeah, if the election is now, they will be the poster boy. That's why UMNO, for the good of UMNO, they should call election immediately now before the opposition get their act together, and then maybe, like for example, PKR is having an election, maybe there might be new leadership coming in, new blood, and I think that's what the voters want. So UMNO cannot wait too long actually for an election.
Ivan?
Yeah, I agree with Philip. UMNO can't wait too long because there are definitely talks, and I know of it personally, that there is an outreach between Pakatan and Perikatan. When the big problem insofar as Perikatan is concerned is that the view is that Tan Sri Muhyiddin should be the PM candidate. And Pakatan's problem also is that they still insist Anwar is the PM candidate. So that's going to be a big stumbling block for them. But I think that overall, my view at least is that people are not going to buy in because these are old, tired brands. And as you said, if you look at the same poster boys again, the same faces, that excitement is not there anymore. The 2018 campaign was so potent because they just went on 3 points. I still remember looking at the billboards. It was just Mahathir, no GST, no toll, and subsidy. That's all. It was punchy, it was potent, and people bought into it because Mahathir gave the campaign credibility. People believe that this guy has been prime minister before. He knows how to do it. The fact that he failed in 22 months and only to resign and then, have two prime ministers after that, I think people don't want that anymore. So it's no use giving your vote to Pakatan or this new opposition coalition. And then in 2 years, they start fighting again. And then you have revolving door governments. And I think that is the biggest thing going for BN at the moment.
And people are now very careful. They're much more smarter to hear promises from politicians.
Yes.
So we have in GE14, there was this great promise to abolish toll. So we know that later, Mahathir said that it could not be done. We promised because we thought that we will not have to fulfill because we thought we would not win. Yeah, and there was this promise to give every TAR college or Utah student 1,000 ringgit. And of course, it could not be done. So people are much more smarter, and they will know, well, politicians can say one thing, but look, I'm not going to swallow everything now. But talking about the poster boy thing, the Barisan Nasional, in particular, UMNO, they have this poster boy for the Johor Menteri Besar, and of course that they got burned in a way because that the palace were not very happy, and that, well, taking a leaf from there, perhaps in the coming GE15 there will not be any poster boy. Because I think all the parties will be much more careful not to put anybody in particular, because at the end of the day, you still got to get the consent of His Majesty. So let's not play around with this and more. That could actually resolve and their problem of having to put somebody as the poster boy. What is your view on this? The unique power of the palace in this. I mean, Ivan, you're a lawyer. Can share with us your thoughts on the authority of the palace in this?
Well, I think you see, the Johor situation is a bit unique, because I think the Johor palace sits has a more unique and more robust position, I would say, as far as politics come in the state. Because generally, if the party MPs have elected a certain individual as leader of the house, he has the majority, and he has the support with him, the ruler should swear him in. Of course, the ruler can say, okay, maybe I want to consider other names. Can you bring me other names? But generally, by convention, the ruler must swear in as Prime Minister or Menteri Besar the person who commands the majority. Of course, in his opinion. Now, that being said, Dato' Sri, we have never really had this problem before in Malaysia. Most of the time, the support has been quite lockstep insofar as for the PM or MB. But of course, all of us were quite taken aback by Dato' Hasni's non-appointment in Johor. That being said, I agree with you. I think everyone's going to be a lot cautious insofar as poster boys are concerned. But they still need a face of the campaign.
Yeah.
And I think this is what UMNO is going to have a big problem with. Who is the face of the campaign? Because I think Zahid and Najib have accepted their faith, and Zahid said as much in his closing speech. He said, look, I think my time is up. I'm not going to come back again. But he hinted to Ismail Sabri that, look, we also have Tokmat. So I think at the right time, Barisan will come to some form of understanding. Insofar as Perikatan is concerned, it's Tan Sri Mahyudin. There's no issue there. But insofar as Pakatan, I think Philip will know better than me. He has more friends there. What actually is their approach to the poster boy?
Ivan, Philip, I just want to follow up with what Ivan said. I thought those were very pertinent points. And most seasoned political watchers understood what Ahmad Zahid was saying at the UMNO General Assembly, because he used the word that he accepted the fate. I think both he and Najib accepted their fate. I thought when I heard that, I knew that they were saying, look, there's no way we could lead the campaign. There's no way that we could, in the case of Najib, even there's no way that he could be seeking re-election. That was my understanding of what he said. Both Najib and of course Ahmad Zahid, these are seasoned political players, and they know and they are mature enough and men enough to accept what is something that they cannot cross the line. They're realistic and mature, and they say that now. For you, Ivan, do you feel that by saying all this, they have set the tone for the UMNO delegates and set the tone for Malaysia? That look, this is the big movement, and in the coming election, this will be Ahmad Zahid. This will be Ismail Sabri, and this will be Tokmat who is going to lead the campaign. Is that your understanding?
Yeah, in a nutshell, yes. That's my understanding. It'll be between Tokmat and Ahmad Zahid. Tokmat and Ismail Sabri. So they both have to decide.
Yeah, that actually ends all this loose talk, loose speculation, loose talk that, Najib is going to contest the election. For me, I've always felt that this was just talk, and it cannot happen, because that they understand that if they lead the campaign, they'll be carrying these heavy loads of baggages with them to the election. By going around to support, playing this boss coup game show, to lend support. Well, people can accept it. It's quite fun to see him around, but not leading the campaign. Now, having said all this, okay, Philip, I want to get your take on this. How does the UMNO grassroots rank and file, how have they responded since then to this statement made by the party president, Ahmad Zahid? Look, we accepted of it. We got to move forward. What have you heard?
Okay. Chinwai, the interesting thing is, okay, we are in Bangsa, so we think we know UMNO, etc. I mean, we are in KL. But then when you go down to the ground, it's quite surprising, when I go to the ground, you talk to the kampung people, they can either be from PAS or even UMNO. I was actually very surprised that Zahid is actually not that popular among the Malays. It's actually, Najib is still popular, it depends. If they are PAS, they're against Najib or whatever. But the name that keep on emerging actually is actually Mat Hassan. He's actually quite popular. People, he has a very good, in terms of rating, people like him. And then the other candidate that we have not mentioned was Hisham, but I think the party itself are not keen with him because he's not seen as a party man because he didn't contest. So if you ask me, Mat Hassan is a very acceptable by UMNO members, I think. It's just that maybe he need to build up more his, the thing with him is he believe in ROI, return of investment. So if you have anything that you ask him to sign, he will look at it and then only decide. So he might have his insistence on ROI might hamper him a bit. Thanks.
Ivan, you look at the background of Tomat Muhammad Hassan. He was the military staff for Negeri Sembilan. Many say that he does not have the kind of national UMNO grassroots support, which is required to win any top positions. But he's number two. He's still number two. Okay. Now, to win the UMNO presidency, to win support, to get the clout to be UMNO president or even the prime minister, if Barisan Nasional through UMNO wins very big, now he will probably need the support of every top guys. Okay, we know that Najib controls a sizable number of votes, and then you have Zahid controls a sizable, Hishamuddin controls. You have these key players who control all these support. Do you think that he has already come to a point where he has already reached an understanding with all these top players to say that, look, I'm a serious player. I may want to go for the UMNO presidency, and I'm counting on you guys. Do you think he has sought out the kind of understanding?
I think a lot of it, very, very interesting. There are a few components to the question. I think the first thing is to understand that we cannot look at UMNO today use the yardstick of 2018 and before. We must look at the UMNO post 2018. And the UMNO post 2018 is fairly democratic because the president is no longer the prime minister. So that's the first component. The second component, I agree with Philip totally. I think Hisham is seen as too opportunistic. When it came to the tough fight, he backed out. Had he contested as VP, he'll be prime minister today. The third factor is that, yes, Mat Hassan was seen as maybe a more provincial politician, not a national politician. But I think he's had 4 years now to grow in the role. And I agree with Philip, the feedback we get is that people like him. One, because he's boring. And people don't want too colorful characters anymore. They want someone who's thinking, who's boring, who's very factual. They don't want someone overly eloquent. They just want someone who can deliver, who understands the economy, who understands government, and can actually do something. So that's where his business background, I think, comes in as a plus. Fourth factor is that he doesn't have the baggage of making overtly racial remarks, etc. So it makes Barisan and UMNO's outreach to the non-Malays a bit easier. I don't think Pakatan is going to get 95% of the non-Malay vote this time, especially the Chinese vote. No way. So where is that balanced vote going to go? Is it going to go to Gerakan and Perikatan? I don't think so. So it will likely go to MCA. So the MCA needs something it can sell to the Chinese community. More importantly, the fifth component of your question, Dato Sri, is whether he has done a deal. And I think that the most powerful figure in UMNO today is Najib. Most of the division chairmen are his men, followed by Zahid. So if he's able to get Zahid and Najib behind him. And I mean, if you read in between the lines, you see Najib is also nudging him. He's the body language when you watch the Facebook videos, how they are, and the praise they have for each other. Mat Hassan showing up for sometimes to court to support Najib. You see, these are all the soft signs that we look for.
Yes.
And I think I would, if I'm a betting man, my money today will be on Mat Hassan.
Yeah.
Okay, can I disagree with Ivan?
Sure.
Ivan, I disagree with you for saying that Mat Hassan is a boring person because he is a Liverpool fan, okay?
Okay, I apologize. I'm not a football person.
Yeah, you better apologize.
I'm sorry about that,
On behalf of the
Philip.
Liverpool fan, you better apologize.
You will never walk alone.
Yes.
Ivan, I want to follow up with what you said about Mat Hassan. One is that because Philip spoke just now about when you talk about talk with Mat Hassan, he talks in terms of returns on investment. He talks about everything like a product. Okay, to him, he comes from a former. He was a private sector man. Okay, he was working in cycle and carriage. So he understood business. He understand what the private sector wants. Many of the government ministers they left university and they work for the public sector, the government straight away. For the civil service, but this guy works in the private sector. He understands that for every money that is spent, he expects every ringgit that is spent, he expects 2 ringgit to come back or more. So he understands the economic much better than the rest. He sees everything as somebody you must sell. So if you go to an election, it must be a product, a Barisan Nasional product or a Barisan or the UMNO product that is sellable to the public. So in our discussion with him, that was what we get. And there's also something that's important. I felt that he has also he practiced a certain kind of political culture that's different from the rest of the UMNO guys. One, he does not have an entourage that follows him. He walks alone. He has got no bodyguards. And while he is chauffeur-driven, he never sits in the back. He sits in front next to his driver. And when he was the Menteri Besar of Negeri Sembilan, he did not have all this huge number of staff. He does not have too many secretaries. He did not have a press secretary. He don't have anybody. So I think that kind of freshness, that kind of culture, which I think most Malaysians want. I mean, they're quite sick of VIPs going around, stopping ambulances and then showing off with their sirens and their loud sirens. People really hate that. They don't understand that Malaysians hate that kind of culture. So this guy, Mat Hassan, understands that much better. Of course, we all know that politicians change. Politicians change when they get elected. But that kind of freshness is interesting. As we are still debating and still trying to figure out when the election will be called, I'm putting my bet, okay, that it will be held this year. I'm putting my bet that by August, September, that could be the date we are looking at. So before I conclude this program, I want you guys to put your bet and tell us when it will be.
Okay, mine will be June or July because UMNO wants it ASAP.
Okay.
My 10 cents. I think we all can take a 10-cent bet with each other. You remember once Kit Siang and Mahathir took a 10-cent bet on the elections, and then Kit Siang shows up to Mahathir's house during Raya and puts 10 cents in his palm. It was purely on elections. I think it was 95 election. My educated guess will be after Malaysia Day. So it will be most probably September, October. I think that's when things will be a lot better. But honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if you have it much earlier.
I think that's the most important month for all speculation is that July is the Hajj. But I think in the past, I think if I'm not mistaken, Sabah, they had elections even during the Hajj, right? Yeah. So again, while we always take into consideration the Hajj season, but there have been elections during the Hajj. So on that score, Malaysians, please stay tuned and do follow us again in our show. Thank you, Ivan, and thank you, Philip, for joining us. Good night, everybody.
Thank you. Good night. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.